So here's an interesting little tidbit from Zero Hedge. And this just goes to show you that even cheap Chinese slave labor can feel the effects of a bad economy, a bad economic situation, even in China. 2 months ago, long before the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times wrote virtually carbon copy pieces, we laid out a list of China risk factors which everyone by now is familiar with. These were as follows: a slowing economy crippled by soaring debt, now over 300% of GDP, an economy which is overly reliant on fixed investment, an artificially high exchange rate, which is adversely impacting exports and impairing trade in a beggar thy neighbor world. Everyone is rapidly devaluing their own currency. The feedback loop of plunging commodity prices and highly levered domestic corporation which cannot pay their annual interest expense payments at current prices of industrial commodities, leading to surging business failures and defaults. A burst housing bubble which recently popped, although slowly growing again. A burst stock market bubble which recently popped, although slowly growing again. And non-performing loans as high as 20% and metastasizing across the Chinese banking sector. The market has been struggling to price many of these into any existing investment theses. We also said what we think is, as of this moment, the biggest and most underreported risk facing China: social discontent resulting from a breakdown in recent agreeable labor conditions, wage cuts, and rising unemployment, leading to labor strikes and, in some cases, violence. To corroborate this, in November, we showed a tally of labor strikes through the 11th month amounting to a record high 2005. We have updated this to show that in just the last 2 months of the year, labor strikes in China have exploded, setting the total to a whopping 2,703. Which he has a little chart that shows it. This chart alone, more than any bullshit goal-seeked data released by the Chinese Politburo, reveals all one needs to know, not only about the Chinese economy and its collapsing labor situation, but also the social mood, because for Chinese workers to dare to protest their employment conditions, knowing full well they risk the full retaliation of the state, which always frowns upon public displays of dissatisfaction, things in China must truly be on the verge of total collapse. And here we have a guy named Liu Lang, a Chinese migrant worker, left his rural hometown in Sichuan province 2 decades ago, so 20 years, right, to work in the factories of the southern province of Guangdong, China's manufacturing powerhouse. But now he is moving back after 20 years. Quote, I worked my way up from a basic worker to a department head, and my career basically ended today, he says, while boarding the train, which is leaving Guangdong. Factories in Guangdong have been hit hard by the slowing economy, and many of them have closed, including the shoe factory where Mr. Liu worked. In 2015, China's economy expanded 6.9%, just below the government's target of 7%, according to official numbers released Tuesday. And I wonder if the Chinese government's official numbers are anything like American government's official numbers. Cooked and completely wrong. While the pace would be the envy of many developed countries, it marks China's slowest economic growth since 1990, the year after the government's crackdown on protesters in Tiananmen Square. Quote, my wife and I were both working at that factory, he said. We lost more than 20,000 renminbi for the last 3 months. He added, referring to about $3,000 or US dollars in unpaid back wages. Now multiply this by tens of millions, he says, to grasp the severity of the problem. In the next update, we will read how Liu and millions of his unemployed peers take to the streets when, after months of failed attempts to find jobs, they turn violent and demand that the government do something to help them. The same government which is now facing an economic catastrophe. So, once again, the United States, with our club, we're at the club members, setting the price of oil, commodities, forex market, foreign currency, we are causing the collapse. I said it last year at the end of the year. It is go time. The club has pulled the trigger. It is go time. Did you see the market down 450 points today? And then once again, at the end of the day, manipulation. Market starts to erase most of the losses, is only down 150 points, and then does a reversal and is down 250. Ends the day like at minus 250. Unbelievable. Actually, no, very, very believable. I think the plunge protection team needs to get a little bit more busier because we can't have no down 450, back up only just $1.50, down $1.50, then end the day with 250. We can't have that. Then again, if it's go time, yes, we can. So this is interesting because even in China, where there's the slave labor sweatshops, those people are being let go, unpaid, $3,000 worth of money. In his case, 20,000 renminbi, or Chinese currency, the yuan or renminbi is what they call it. And he ain't getting it back. Yeah, they're not going to go to some kind of, we're going to follow a lawsuit. No, not in China. You lost it, it's gone. Sorry about your luck. Go back to where you came from 20 years ago. So what this shows us is that he lasted through the 2008 collapse, or not necessarily collapse, we'll call that a mini collapse. He survived through that. So if he survived through that, this next collapse, I thought it hadn't even started yet. He worked for 20 plus years at this factory. Again, which means he skated through 2008, no problem. Here we are in 2016, and all of a sudden, he's shit out of luck, basically. Lost his job, go back to the boondocks where he came from 20 years ago. Sorry about your luck. Not looking good. Take care.